Hello, Packers fans. Welcome into PackersNews.com. I'm Kassidy Hill here in Tampa Bay. Uh, this originally was supposed to be out on the field and near the Pirate Ship here in Tampa, but they like to shoot a cannon off here in Tampa and they like to test it before the game. So you are here in the press box with me for our pregame Facebook and YouTube Live. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. We're going to get to those here in just a minute as we move along. First, a couple of injury updates because I know that's on the top of everyone's mind. As our Ryan Wood reported yesterday, left tackle David Bakhtiari is expected to play in today versus Tampa, barring an unforeseen setback. That could always be the case. You never know. But this is a reminder this would be the first time he's played more than 27 snaps versus the Detroit Lions since tearing his ACL on December 31st of that 2019 season. Yes, or 2020. I had to think. It's been almost 2 years. Um, so this would be a very significant development, especially against this Tampa Bay front seven. As Heidi immediately asked, is Bakhtiari the whole game? That's still what remains to be seen. As you remember, the last time he played, it was only 27 snaps versus the Detroit Lions last season. So we'll see if he can make it the whole game today. They could certainly use him. Having Elton Jenkins back last week versus the Chicago Bears was a difference maker, as Matt LaFleur said. That if they had not held Elton Jenkins, they don't win that game. And so if they want to continue to lean on the run game today, which they likely will given the wide receiver issue, which we'll get into in just a minute, um, they will need to be able to lean on Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon once again. And having David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins in there would make a massive difference. As Brad asked, can we expect Bach to be an upgrade at this point over Neinman? Josh Neinman has done a very solid job, but of course David Bakhtiari is an all-pro left tackle. When you plug him back in, when you plug Bakhtiari in, you can move Elton Jenkins around. That changes your entire line. Will David Bakhtiari be the same David Bakhtiari he was before tearing the ACL? Will be the biggest question. As we know, the last time he played, he re-injured it. He had to go through another surgery. Obviously, the Packers don't want that to happen today and start another setback, as Brian Gutekunst has said the whole time. This is a long-term deal. We don't want to just bring him back for one game and then lose him again. So he very well might be on a pitch count, to go back to Heidi's question. And it might just be the feel of the game, how his knee is feeling at the end of the first quarter, at the end of the second quarter. If his knee feels like it can hold up, then he'll probably stay in the game. John asked, will wide receiver Samori Toure be brought up from the practice squad today since Christian Watson will be out? Samori Toure is actually on the active roster. He's not a practice squad receiver, but Juwan Winfrey was elevated from the practice squad yesterday. So that's at least one guy that has been brought up. Christian Watson is reported to be out due to his hamstring injury. We have not been able to confirm that yet. That was reported by Adam Schefter of ESPN. Inactives will come out in about 35 minutes here. And so we will know for sure at that point if Christian Watson is playing or not today. Samori Toure, though, although being on the active roster, has yet to appear in a game for the Packers. He's been inactive the previous weeks. And so we could very well see him active today. However, they do expect Allen Lazard to play. You know, he had hurt his ankle before week one. That kept him out of week one. He played in week two, seemed to tweak it a little bit. And he did not practice on Wednesday. No, he was limited on Wednesday, did not practice Thursday, practiced Friday. And so we'll see if he is on a pitch count today as well. It may just be sort of feeling how that ankle feels. Rebecca asked, do you think they just sit Neiman or move him to right tackle and bring Jenkins inside to help with Villa? That's a very, very good point, a very good question. Villa Veda is a game changer. And so you have to game plan around him. And that's the beauty of Elton Jenkins. And to answer your question, Rebecca, I think if it had been another person you asked about, I might could give you a more clear answer. But the beauty of Elton Jenkins is that you can play him anywhere. And so I don't want to tell you one way or the other, but I think that's a very decent possibility because he can play both tackle and both guard spots. And so if they have David Bakhtiari back, knowing that they can trust Josh Neiman as well, they then have the luxury of moving Elton Jenkins around to where they need him most. And today versus these Tampa Bay Buccaneers, going against Vita Vea could very well be where they need him. Of course, as much as we look back and forth at this offensive line, this will be a trenches game for sure. Outside of the I'm trying to say the inner circle of Packers and Bucs. This game is all about Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers nationally. That's what I'm trying to say. The national narrative is all about Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers that are not going to be on the field at the same time. They don't, they play both offense, but this will only be the fifth time those two quarterbacks have faced each other, which is incredible when you think about how long their career has been. But of course, Brady being in the AFC for most of his career made a big difference there. But through the years, they played in different golf matches, celebrity golf matches together, have been at events together, and have developed an interesting little friendship. And Aaron Rodgers talked about that this week and how interesting it is to kind of look at Tom Brady, look at his career through the scope of Tom Brady's. Let's hear from Aaron now.
On Brady's birthday, I think somebody asked you if you'd play at 45. And you said no. Why did you say that? And what would you think you would be like if you were playing at 45?
I won't be. I'll be doing something else. I have a lot of other interests outside the game. The game's been really, really good to me. I feel like I've given my all to the game. At some point, it'll be time to do something else. And I strongly believe that'll be before 45.
As a guy who's gone through this crucible and knows what it is to advance to this stage that most quarterbacks don't even get to in their career, what impresses you the most about what he's been able to do with his own journey?
Well, it's consistency where you're still playing at a high level and there's, not that drop off. I think every great player fears, turning into a real below average player on the way out. I don't think anybody wants to really hang on. Maybe there's some guys that just want to get another year, or maybe they're on a team where they can do a lot less, but when you've achieved at a high level for a long time, you try and stay there as long as you can.
Is he the guy that has had no drop off in your eyes? Was he the same guy that he was 10 years ago?
Well, he's probably better mentally and slightly regressed physically. He takes care of himself incredibly, but age, I'm sure 45, he might feel better, be more pliable, but definitely different than at 30. But the consistency has been there every year of his career.
So there you hear from Aaron Rodgers saying he will probably not play till 45 like Tom Brady, but then again, Tom Brady didn't think he'd be playing at 45 either until recently. Tom Brady, of course, is with age, and as comes with age, not quite as physical as he used to be. He's never been really a huge runner, but it's his IQ that makes him so dangerous. That's something all of the Packer DBs mentioned this week. It's what he knows. There's no defense he hasn't seen, no coverage he can't diagnose, no scheme he can't pick apart. And so how do you beat someone like that? And essentially they said you just figure out a way to disguise what you want to do against him. And I do see some more questions coming in. We're going to get to those in a little bit here too. So feel free to go ahead and drop them in the comments. But as I was saying, a lot of different ways you have to defend Tom Brady than you do any other quarterback. And it's been interesting meetings in the Packers DB room this week because of that. Let's hear from some of those DBs.
What were the Saints doing that was working that maybe you can emulate?
They didn't show Brady what he wanted to see. Then they just dropped into certain looks. They kind of came after him a little bit as well. Made him kind of move left and right. Things that you don't really want to do. It made him a little uncomfortable.
What's the biggest danger Tom Brady presents?
He's been doing it for forever, I'm only 25, and I think this is his 23rd year. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of crazy to think about. So he's seen everything. He's seen so many different players, so many different plays, so many different, just eras, just how the game's changed. So I would just say his mind, how fast he moves, how fast he works. But we got to be ready to communicate and be able to combat that.
You got to be smart. You got to know that if he understands it's coming, he has a plan for it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a cat and mouse game you got to play with. Sometimes we mix it in, sometimes we don't. You just got to just keep playing that game.
He's been in the league for 23 years. I'm 23 years old. So he's been in here for a long time, just his knowledge and all that stuff. So that's hands down probably one of his biggest things.
How do you stop a player of that caliber?
As a DB unit, you just got to go out and do what we best can do to where be tight in coverage and just make it hard. Just try to give him anything. I mean, I know pretty much he probably done seen everything, so just try to give him different looks and just continue to hopefully confuse him.
What's the biggest danger Tom Brady presents?
His presence.
Meaning?
It's Tom Brady. He's the most winningest quarterback ever.
Like in an intimidating sort of way?
Nah, it's just, he's a competitor, so I feel like he brings out everybody's best games and what makes him great.
As we were hearing there from the Packers DBs, you just kind of have to find a way almost to trick him in a way while still staying true to what you want to do. Easier said than done. Tom Brady will be without Mike Evans. He will be without Chris Godwin. He will likely be without Julio Jones. The Bucs had to elevate Cole Beasley from the practice squad yesterday. That makes a massive difference in what they're going to want to do on offense. But of course, Tom Brady has won Super Bowls with wide receivers whose names are lost to history. So if any quarterback can do it, he can. Aaron Rodgers has a good argument there as well, though. And Aaron Rodgers, as we said, likely without Christian Watson, according to reports, is for sure without Sammy Watkins after he was placed on IR this week with a hamstring injury. By placing him on IR, he is immediately gone for at least 4 weeks, likely possibly more, but at least 4. The Packers elevated Juwan Winfrey from the practice squad yesterday, as we said. They also signed running back Patrick Taylor to the active roster. So that does give them 3 running backs now on the active roster to go along with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Also sort of indicates that they do want to be a running team more, as they proved able to do versus the Bears. We see some more questions coming in. Let's jump to a few of them here. John Dickinson, how come we have not seen Devontae Wyatt on the field yet? Can he help us on defense? In theory, yes. But he's not there yet. I'm not to say he won't get there. Quay Walker came in ready to play. He was NFL ready. There are, of course, some things he still has to catch up on. He saw versus the Bears that, he can get juked out by Justin Fields, but he also had the speed to make up for it and then stopped him there on that 3rd and 1 after getting flat-footed. So Quay Walker came in NFL ready. He can pick apart what the offense wants to do. He has the speed and the athleticism to combat it. Devontae Wyatt can get there with his physicality. He's just not quite there yet. And that's a deep unit with Dean Lowry and TJ Slayton and Rashawn Gary. And I know I'm missing some. That's how deep that unit is. And so the Packers don't necessarily need Devontae Wyatt to be ready yet, if that makes sense. They just need him to get there in the next year or two, possibly by the end of this season. Let's see. Let's grab some more questions here. Any word on Mercedes Lewis would sure help the run. Mercedes Lewis was listed as questionable for this game with a groin injury. Inactives will come out in about 30 minutes here, 20, 30 minutes. We'll know more then. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play. Let me put it that way. Any word on Lazard? Lazard should be good to go today. He did not even receive a game status on Friday's injury report, which is a good indication that he will play. We've seen him arrive, warm up. So look for Allen Lazard to play today. Will he be able to play the whole game as that ankle sort of flares back up will be the question. Let's see. Grab a couple of others here. Matthew asked, where's Pete? Is he coming on the show? Pete is not at the stadium yet. He should be here soon. Typically, we would do this show 3 hours before kickoff, which is why Pete has not been joining me this year. However, as I mentioned, the Bucs were testing their cannons off the pirate ship the entire time I was outside trying to test it or trying to get set up. And so had to move inside, went a little later. Pete might actually be here before we're done, but he will be joining me for the post-game live. So stay tuned for that as well. Let's see. Heidi says he was put on the injury report for a couple of his fingers. Do you know anything about that? Heidi, I'm assuming this question is about Tom Brady, who was put on the injury report last week for a finger issue. It was a ring finger on his throwing hand, but he was a full participant every day of practice. And so I think it was precautionary more than anything. Maybe even a little bit of gamesmanship on behalf of the Bucs. Pam says, how about Cobb? I know he didn't practice some due to illness. He did not practice all week due to illness. I don't believe he is expected to play today. I think he was listed as questionable, but I am going to double check that for you, Pam, just to make sure. I will double check that on Cobb. Mason Crosby also didn't practice because of an illness. but Rich Bisaccia seemed confident that Mason Crosby would be available today, which could be huge considering the weapons both offenses are without, how strong both defenses are. This could easily come down to a special teams game, much like it did versus the San Francisco 49ers in week 3 of last year. As I mentioned, this is actually a really good segue. Both offenses without weapons, we know the Packers want to lean on Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon regardless. The Bucs may be forced to lean on Leonard Fournette, who also had some hamstring issues this week during practice. And so even though he's expected to play, he might not be at his best, at his full strength. That being said, this Packers defense knows that they are going to have to put a lot of their focus on Leonard Fournette, a la Dalvin Cook in that second Minnesota Vikings game last year. And that can change what they have to do. Let's hear from them now.
Oh, yeah, he's a downhill runner. That's what he do. He drop his shoulder pads. He gonna try to run over you. That's just. I think that's what their whole team is built on. Just physicality, domination. That's what they try to do. Everybody they try to pump everybody. They want to run through everybody. They want to talk stuff, late hit, all that. That's just where they get their energy from.
You got to bring it.
Yeah,
similarly.
Definitely got to match the intensity.
Plan on being in the box a lot more, just with Leonard Fournette kind of being the guy.
No, whatever's called. We're just gonna go out there and we're gonna just try to play together. That's the biggest thing for us as far as just staying on this track that we're on. Want to keep what we had last week going. So we just gotta keep growing together and playing together as one, which is it's tough sometimes. It's all about. I've said it so many times. Just finding that groove, kind of getting in rhythm. So this is just another really good test for us this week. They're gonna come ready to play. They're a physical group. Well coached, got a great quarterback, so it'll be fun.
Great quarterback is going to be fun. It should be fun. But as we said, probably a really defensive game. The Bucs and Saints were locked in a defensive battle last week. As Heidi said, this has to be a defense game. It's going to – both teams are leaning on that fact that it's going to probably be a defensive game. Glenn sort of echoing that thought. With both teams depleted at wide receiver, the running game will be the key for both teams. The Bucs have a stronger defense, so the advantage, unfortunately, goes to Tampa Bay. That is probably very true. The Bucs, especially in the front seven, are stronger than the Packers right now. It's just almost a fact. They have big DBs, which can be to their advantage. But as we saw also before the last time the Packers played the Bucs, MVS and his speed was able to get past these big Bucs DBs. Christian Watson would be the equivalent to MVS, and they will not have him today, likely, according to reports. Romeo Doubs, though, don't overlook his speed and what he can do and his ability to separate. He was doing that all during training camp. He was doing it during the preseason. He's been able to do it so far during the first 2 games. This will be a big test, but Romeo Doubs could be the guy that they use out on the edge just to get downfield because his speed is so much faster than people give him credit for. There was a question in here about Julio Jones I want to go back to. Heidi, do you believe Julio Jones will play? They said it will be decided during warm-ups. It will be decided during warm-ups, and actually inactives we're inching up on inactives being announced here. Sorry. Based on Julio Jones' injury and injury history, I would lean towards him not playing. He is much like the Sammy Watkins signing for the Bucs in that sense, that he's an older receiver who has a lot of experience and some tools in his tool belt that are still beneficial, but is also being plagued a little bit by injury history. And so if Julio Jones, I would be more surprised if Julio Jones plays than if he doesn't play. That's the best way to put it. I'm going to take a couple more questions here before we get ready to sign off. Matthew asked, what does Ryan think of this game? I say Packers are going to outplay the Bucs. I need to go look up Ryan's prediction. I know that Pete and I actually both predicted the Bucs to win in a close game. I think we actually went with the same score, 17-13. Could we be proven wrong? Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last time. But I think Pete and I both went with Bucs winning 17-13. Let's see. We have a couple of more questions in here. Randy says, let's hope our veteran Crosby can kick a lot of field goals. That could very well be what this game comes down to today. We'll have to see. Rasul Douglas mentioned this week that they have a feeling this is going to be a special teams game. That in the past meant almost a sure loss for the Packers. Of course, with the addition of Rich Bisaccia and we see more and more starters on special teams, that has evened out a little bit. So before we get ready to sign off here, in what has become my favorite part of these pregame shows, we take you inside the locker room with the best of the locker room each week. The guys, of course, like to have fun, cut up, play around, and they really did so this week, even playing around with us, the reporters. I think it was a pretty defensive week in our Best of the Locker Room series for week 3. We're going to take you in the locker room with us. Here's Best of the Locker Room, week 3.
I'm nervous.
Sure, I
Do you know what you're doing? Are you pointing it correctly?
Yeah, so I can see everything.
You want to ask me how I play slot corner?
I just signed to the. Hey, I just got drafted since I never
I'll be
actually
spending my
had
next
that.
4 years.
Since I never had the actual hat on draft day.
Why not?
I honestly did not know who I was going to. I thought I was going to Tennessee, but yeah, so I ain't have no hats.
It's amazing. I don't know.
10 birds in the tree, right? And I shoot one of them. How many are left?
10.
Did it fall out of the tree?
That's on you.
We back. Do I got a PSA? PSA, you know, it's kind of chill out here.
Do you have any questions for him?
No, I ain't answering no questions from Keyshawn.
I'd have to say 9, but I'm probably wrong.
I'm gonna
I don't
say
do
10.
math. That's why I write.
This is pure. So I'm gonna say it's 10. I might be dead, but it's there.
Who's the fastest player in the defensive back row?
Me. Me.
Honestly, believe that?
Yes.
Who on this team would you least like dangerous system?
You. that was an easy question.
How
I feel
is it
stupid.
You said 0.
Exactly, because if you shoot in the tree, they all gonna go away.
Oh.
None of them left in the tree. Gotcha.
I
Come back and catch me, man.
Rasul Douglas was so proud of that riddle that was more of a joke that he said he's going to bring one to us each week. Life lessons with Rasul or something along those lines is what he's calling it. So we look forward to that. He definitely stomped Ryan and I along with our colleague Bill Huber. To answer an earlier question about Randall Cobb, he actually was just seen out on the field during warmups, running around. He did not practice, like we said, all of last week due to an illness, but the fact that he traveled, is here with the team, and is now going through warmups is a very good sign. ESPN reporting that he is likely to play. So good news there on Randall Cobb. Guys, thank you so much for joining me yet again for another week of our Packers News Facebook and YouTube Live pregame. Stay tuned to PackersNews.com for full coverage of the Packers versus Bucs. Ryan Wood will have it actives here in about 15 minutes. So look for that on Packers News. Make sure you follow Tom Silverstein's live blog leading up to kickoff, during the game, and after the game as well. And then, as I said, you can join Pete and I after the game on Facebook and YouTube Live right here as well. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you soon.